Imagine a world where your daily income is less than a cup of coffee in Manhattan. It's a stark reality for many, but it's one that's often overlooked. Today, we're delving into the realm of global poverty, a complex issue that continues to persist despite the world's abundant resources. We'll be exploring the top 10 countries where the majority of inhabitants survive on a daily income that barely covers the cost of a simple meal. In a world where economic scales tip heavily in favor of a select few countries, the devastating reality of poverty remains a constant struggle for many. In these nations, the average daily income barely scratches the surface of a single dollar. It's a sobering thought, one that challenges our understanding of wealth distribution and pushes us to question, why does extreme poverty still exist in a world of abundant resources? As we count down these countries, we'll also delve into their gross domestic product, or GDP, and population density, two factors that play significant roles in the economic status of a nation. GDP is the total value of everything produced by all the people and companies in a country, and population density is the number of people living per square kilometer. These figures help us understand the scale of poverty and the immense challenges these countries face. But what are the root causes of such extreme poverty? Is it simply a lack of resources, or does corruption play a part? Could it be the result of ongoing wars that disrupt economic growth and development? To answer these questions, we'll delve into the social, economic, and political landscapes of these countries, exploring the factors that have left them grappling with such high levels of poverty. From the war-torn lands of Afghanistan to the resource-strapped nations of Africa, we'll journey through these countries, shedding light on the harsh realities faced by their citizens every day. So, buckle up as we embark on this eye-opening journey. Let's dive into the harsh realities of these countries and understand why they are trapped in the cycle of poverty. In the 10th spot, we have Afghanistan, a country torn by war and political instability. This landlocked nation in South Asia has a population density of around 44 people per square kilometer. With a gross domestic product per capita of less than $200, Afghanistan has one of the lowest in the world. Many Afghans earn an average daily income of less than $1, struggling to make ends meet. The country's economic woes can be traced back to decades of war and political corruption that have crippled its infrastructure and hindered development. The impact of war is compounded by the widespread corruption within the government, leading to misallocation of resources and a lack of investment in public services. This has resulted in a high poverty rate and a low standard of living for many Afghans. The war-torn country of Afghanistan shows us how political unrest can lead to widespread poverty. Moving on, we find Haiti, Mozambique, and Liberia in the 9th, 8th, and 7th spots respectively. Haiti, an island nation in the Caribbean, finds itself grappling with a gross domestic product per capita of under $1,000. With a dense population of over 1,000 people per square kilometer, the average Haitian survives on a measly $2 a day. The country's economy has been severely impacted by a series of natural disasters, including the catastrophic earthquake in 2010. Mozambique, on the southeastern coast of Africa, isn't faring much better. Its GDP per capita is slightly higher than Haiti's, but still falls short of the $1,000 mark. Despite having a lower population density, the average Mozambican also manages on about $2 a day. While natural disasters play a part in Mozambique's economic struggles, political instability and corruption are significant contributing factors. Last but certainly not least in this trio is Liberia. Located on the west coast of Africa, Liberia has a GDP per capita of just over $700. With a population density of less than 50 people per square kilometer, it's less crowded than Haiti or Mozambique. However, the average Liberian survives on less than $2 a day. The country's economy has been ravaged by 2 civil wars, and its recovery has been slowed by a lack of resources and ongoing political instability. In all 3 countries, the common threads are clear. Natural disasters wreak havoc on already struggling economies. Political instability and corruption create an environment where economic growth is stifled. And a lack of resources, whether natural or financial, further compounds these issues. The result? Millions of people living in extreme poverty, surviving on the bare minimum. These countries illustrate the devastating effects of natural disasters and lack of resources on an economy. Next, we have Malawi and Niger, countries that are struggling due to geographical constraints and lack of resources. In the heart of Africa, Malawi, with a GDP of just over $6 billion, endures a population density of over 190 people per square kilometer. Meanwhile, Niger, a vast landlocked nation, has a GDP of around $9 billion, with a population density of just 17 people per square kilometer. In terms of daily income, many individuals in both countries survive on less than $2 a day. These numbers are stark reminders of the harsh realities faced by many in these regions. The geographical constraints of being landlocked, combined with limited resources, have significantly hampered economic development. These factors, coupled with issues such as climate change and political instability, contribute to the widespread poverty experienced. Geographical constraints and lack of resources can also lead to devastating poverty, as seen in Malawi and Niger. In the fourth and third spots, we have the Democratic Republic of Congo and Burundi. These are countries with great potential, but whose progress has been hampered by a variety of factors. Let's start with the Democratic Republic of Congo, often simply referred to as the DRC. Despite being blessed with a wealth of natural resources, the DRC struggles with a gross domestic product of about $22 billion, a figure that pales in comparison to its population of over 80 million people. This leads to an incredibly low average daily income of less than $1. The story is similar for Burundi, a small, landlocked nation in East Africa. With a population density of over 400 people per square kilometer, resources are stretched thin. The GDP stands at a meager $3 billion, resulting in an average daily income of less than $1. Political instability has played a significant role in the economic struggles of both countries. In the DRC, years of civil war and rampant corruption have left the country's infrastructure in tatters and its economy on a shaky foundation. Burundi, on the other hand, has been marred by political violence and instability since gaining independence, leading to an economy that is highly dependent on subsistence agriculture, which is vulnerable to climate change and market fluctuations. Corruption is another common thread linking these nations. In both the DRC and Burundi, corruption is a significant barrier to economic growth. It discourages foreign investment, hinders the development of a robust private sector, and diverts resources away from essential services like health and education. The impact of war cannot be underestimated either. The DRC has been plagued by conflict for decades, while Burundi has not been immune to the ravages of civil unrest. These conflicts have displaced millions, disrupted economic activities, and created a climate of uncertainty that is not conducive to economic growth. The Democratic Republic of Congo and Burundi serve as stark reminders of how political instability and corruption can lead to extreme poverty. Finally, in the second and first spots, we have the Central African Republic and South Sudan. The Central African Republic, a nation of around 4.8 million people, grapples with a gross domestic product of just under $2 billion. Unfortunately, the average daily income of individuals here is less than $2. With a population density of approximately 8 people per square kilometer, resources are spread thin, and the people are stretched even thinner. The country's economic struggles are largely due to the ongoing civil war and political instability. This has disrupted trade, agriculture, and the basic functioning of the state. Furthermore, the lack of natural resources, such as oil or precious minerals, has left the country with few commodities to trade on the international market. Switching gears to South Sudan, this nation of roughly 11 million people faces similar economic challenges. Despite being rich in oil reserves, South Sudan's gross domestic product barely surpasses $3 billion, and the average daily income is barely over $1. The population density, at 20 people per square kilometer, is slightly higher than that of the Central African Republic. South Sudan's economic woes can be traced back to its decades-long civil war, which has disrupted oil production, the country's main source of income. Political instability has also played a significant role. The lack of infrastructure and the ongoing conflict have hindered the exploitation of other natural resources, leaving the country heavily dependent on oil revenues. In both countries, war and political instability have ripped apart the economic fabric, leaving the people in a state of dire poverty. The lack of diverse resources compounds these issues, making it difficult to establish stable, resilient economies. The Central African Republic and South Sudan, the world's poorest countries, show us the devastating effects of war, political instability, and lack of resources on a nation's economy. So, we've taken a journey through the world's poorest countries and seen the various factors contributing to their poverty. We've seen 10 nations, each with its unique struggle, yet bound by a common thread: poverty. From Afghanistan to South Sudan, the tales of survival on mere dollars per day, the crippling GDP, and the high population density are all too familiar. We've explored how war, political instability, and lack of resources have fueled this vicious cycle of poverty. It is evident that corruption has eaten deep into the fabric of these societies, and the lack of necessary resources has further pushed these nations into the abyss of impoverishment. However, as we wrap up this poignant journey, it's important to remember the resilience and spirit of the people who call these countries home. As we ponder on these realities, the question remains: how can we, as a global community, work together to eradicate extreme poverty?